Okay, with one Fight Night 27 gone and done, it was a card to remember. With the crowning of new champions, underdogs overcoming the odds and winning, and the new contenders emerging. Let's get right into the action. Okay, so the night was kick-started by Sublack and Kovtun, and this fight was one for the ages. So Sublack started this fight off really well, landing heavy leg kicks, which really started to damage Kovtun's legs. But as good as Sublack was doing with his leg kicks, Kovtun was doing even better, closing the distance, getting into the clinch, and throwing the elbows over the top, which even ended up dropping Sublack in round one. Sublack did survive, and the fight was an entertaining one from there, really setting a pace for the rest of this card. Kovtun always staying one step ahead on the judges' scorecard, though. He managed to get the decision victory over Sublack. So, with this fight, though, personally, right, I thought Sublack did really well, but there was no way you were going to give it anywhere other than Kovtun. He was just a more active fighter. Sublack seemed to sit down and sit back during the fight. He didn't show an urgency that was needed to win this fight. So Kovtun really did step up in this fight and really improved, especially regarding his last two performances. So I can see him going on and winning a fair few. But he needs to stay on this upward trajectory rather than sitting back in his next one or two. So from there, we went on to another 3-round war between Mingo and Chihiro Sawada. So this fight was more interesting than I thought it would be. It kind of went how I thought it would without the end result. So it's kind of like on a maths test when you're asked to show your working. They showed the correct working what I had in my head, but the result wasn't the same. So in my head, I had Sawada eventually being able to crack the code of Mengbo, getting it on the inside, taking her down and beating her on the ground. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Mengbo did extremely well, keeping her away and keeping her at distance at nearly all times. Sawada did have some success going in, but in the end, she wasn't able to overcome that, which was long-range striking from Mengbo. Every time Sawada seemed to go in, Mengbo had an answer, and she sprawled every time. Sawada even had good moments where she made Mengbo overreact. She made a sprawl early, and this made she was able to get underhooks in a few times and get to her back. But none of it in the end actually came to anything. It didn't come to any damage or any points. So, I mean, both walked away with tons of marks and swelling all over the face, especially the eyes. And the moment of the fight was when Sawada countered what seemed to be a trip initiated by Mengbo into some sort of front flip cartwheel, which just landed Sawada into side control on Mengbo, which it was really impressive. But like I said, in the end, Mengbo's long, lengthy striking was just too much for Sawada to overcome. And she always has had difficulty overcoming that long, lengthy striking in previous fights, but she always has managed to figure it out eventually, get past it, get her down. With Mengbo, it seemed different. She was able to keep her away using kicks. She had her running away a lot of the time and was following in with kicks, kicking her away. So, for me, I thought Mengbo had a really good performance, and I thought this was another 3-round fight, which was just entertaining, and it was a real joy to watch. I don't think it was fight of the night, though. I am going to rate all of them later on in the cards. Okay, so fight 3 came in a quick one in the form of Canate versus Orgil Bartecu. So a lot of this fight was from the clinch, where Canate seemed to have the upper hand for the first 2 minutes, keeping Orgil Bartecu in a clinch into the corner of the ring. The only problem with it was not a lot of action was being held there. There wasn't a lot of action, there wasn't a lot of damage from Canate. It was more so he just had control, but he didn't have a lot of action. It wasn't anything for the judges to score. I never get why fighters do it. where you get control, but you're not looking for any damage, you're not looking for any action. It makes the fight boring. But as soon as that broke, you had Barreto go for a spinning kick, which was an inch off hitting. From there, he outstruck him for a little bit, and then he took him into one of his own clinches, dragged Canate down, forced him into the corner when they got back to his feet from a scramble. And from there, not a whole lot to say, really. Barreto was just impressive on the ground. He was impressive with his strength. And it comes from that massive physique he has at that weight class. Like, he is massive for that weight class. It is insane. So from there, he was able to grapple, which almost looked like he threw Canate down to the ground, landing him into a bloody... Right, he landed him into a Kimura. That was it. He landed him straight into a Kimura. And it was a deep Kimura, which he had full mount on. Canate tried to roll. Barreto rolled with him and just put him into an even deeper Kimura for the win. This was one of the fights I was more so confident with my prediction of. I just think Barreto going to get him to the ropes, drag him down. Like, they were my opinions in my last video where I predicted it. So fight 4 was Tatsumitsu Wada versus Sanzar Zacharov. So this fight, it was kind of like watching a dance that Zacharov was leading the whole time. To me, it seemed like Zacharov had control for a lot of the fight. It wasn't a moment in the fight where I was watching and I was kind of worried. I thought Zacharov controlled it beautifully with his kicks. I think his kicks are something that is like watching art and listening to poetry. His kicks are phenomenal. He throws them from all angles, super fast. Like, I think Wada managed to catch one in the end. But other than that, his movement and his kicks were enough to evade Wada for most of the fight. When it came to it, Sanzar Zacharov looked better at the grappling. He mixed in his kicks, getting his hands up high. You're right, had Wada's hands up high, blocking the kicks. From there, Zacharov just double leg, single leg, taking Wada down to the ground, controlling him. So Zacharov played the judges' scorecards perfect, personally. I think the amount of spinning kicks Zacharov threw really earned him his name, the Tornado. And, I mean, Wada had some successful sweeps, obviously living up to his name, the Sweeper. So you had a fight which seemed, again, almost predictable, where one fight was mainly grappling, one fight was mainly striking. But the thing that I was happy with was that Zacharov also looked in control in the grappling exchanges as well, not just the striking exchanges. But I think Wada did very well to stay within the fight, being a lot older than that of Zacharov. So, I mean, again, one of the fight moments of the whole evening, really, was Wada catching his kick and Zacharov choosing to get out of that kick by attempting a spinning hook kick to get out of a kick or get out of a catch, even. And I just think that, how does one's mind process something like that and goes, yeah, spinning hook? So, yeah, I thought Zacharov won every single round quite comfortably on the judges' scorecards. So he was able to get the decision victory. Personally, I thought he was going to finish it. I thought he would have finished it round 1, round 2. I thought he's a lot better than Wada, and I think it would have been able to get him out a little bit sooner. So I think Wada did very well to stay in the fight for as long as he did, personally. So, fight 5, which was the first and only BJJ fight of the evening between Tommy Lineker and Dante Leon. So the fight started on the feet. Both men were trying to size each other up. Both were fighting for wrist control. Dante Leon tried to pull guard whilst they were trying to fight for the wrist. So Dante Leon pulled guard first. From there, Lineker spent a lot of time unable to go around Dante Leon's guard. He wasn't able to get full mount. He wasn't able to get control. He wasn't able to pass guard. He didn't try and get a lot of submission victories. It was just Dante Leon countering Tommy Lineker for a lot of the fight. From there, when they stood up again, Dante Leon once again went for the same thing. He went for the pull guard attempt at trying to get an ankle lock, trying to get an ankle pick. It didn't really work, but same thing. For 10 minutes, Tommy Lankiker wasn't able to pass the guard of Dante Leon. So from there, the last 2 minutes was the most interesting, where Tommy Lankiker was able to get an ankle lock, but Dante Leon has very flexible knees, so it wasn't really the best interest trying to leg lock on him. His legs are very flexible, Dante Leon's are. From there, he tried a leg lock of his own on Tommy Lankiker, and within the last 20 seconds, he was also very close to getting an armbar. So Dante Leon was a little bit more aggressive of the two and also showed better defensive skill whilst on his back. So Dante Leon managed to win the game, or he managed to win the match in the end by unanimous decision after the 12 minutes, 1-round BJJ match. So I'm sure Dante Leon will be able to go up, maybe challenge the champ, maybe challenge for second, you never know. So for match 6, it was between Luke Lessei and Cody Jerome in a Thai boxing match. So this fight started off with Cody Jerome looking like the aggressor from early. He was pushing the pace, he was going forward, and he was putting Luke Lessei onto the back foot a lot of the fight. He was going forward, he was going in the clinch, punches, elbows, at moments catching Luke Lessei with things that have dropped him in the past. But Luke Lessei prevailed and proved why he is so good. He used his range, he used his kicks and his movement around. He opened up angles and then finally landed a nice switch kick to Cody Jerome's ribs, putting him down. In the end, he dropped him 3 times with body kicks in the first round to end the fight. Lessei has got lovely teeps and roundhouses. He's got lovely lengthy legs, and he's able to keep opponents at bay quite successfully with his fluid movement as well. So he's evasive and he's able to capitalise on people overextending a lot. He does struggle with more aggressive fighters. So he did struggle in that Joe Natawata fight when he came in close. He did struggle with, is it Canate? I think he struggled with Canate, his last loss, when he came in close. He struggles more so with the close range fighting rather than long range and mid range. He's quite successful with that. So Cody Jerome was a good matchup for him, but he just gave him too much space in one moment, and Luke Lessei was able to dig that kick in and drop Jerome. And, you know, watching that fight, you could see the physical pain on Jerome, and there was nothing he could do, because if he wasn't blocking his body, he had to block his head. And if he was blocking his head, his body was open for them kicks all night long. So he got up, he has heart on him. But yeah, after the first, he probably took 20, 30 kicks in the body within the space of a minute or two. So it was enough to drop anyone, and in the end it did. And Luke Lessei prevails, and I think he's going to keep climbing up the rankings, man. I'm a massive Luke Lessei fan. I do really, really rate what the chef is cooking. So fight 7 was our first title fight of the evening between Denise Zamboanga and Alessandra Rosonia. So this fight, it was surprising to me. You could really see how long Rosonia's had off. Obviously, she's had 3 years off doing the duties of a mother, but having them 3 years off really has changed her. I think she made a lot of mistakes that she hasn't done previously. I mean, she went 10 rounds with Stamp Fairtex, and she made very little mistakes, or else Fairtex would have got her out, Stamp would have beat her. That's the thing you have to think. This fight, she made a lot more mistakes than what she usually does. So Zamboanga was victorious in the second, finishing her by ground and pound. For me, personally, she was probably getting ground and pound in that corner for 30 seconds whilst Herb Dean was watching. He was staring at it for 30 seconds, and Rosonia did very little to try and get out. I don't know what she was really doing. She was covering up for 30 seconds. She didn't show any effort to try and get out personally. So, don't get me wrong, like, I put her to win because 3 years ago she was amazing. Don't get me wrong, yes, she had 3 years layoff, but people have come back from 3 years and become champions again in boxing, in MMA, in Thai boxing, multiple fighting styles. You can have 3 years off, come back, and look the same or even better. And I think Rosonya just didn't. I think she looked very lackluster of the performer and the fighter that she used to be. So, but now obviously we get to set up a fight between Zamboanga and Stamp Fairtex for the actual belt, to unify the belt. Because obviously that was an interim belt that Zamboanga has won. And I do think Fairtex will win. But there's a bigger storyline here. These two used to be training partners. So there is a storyline to be held and to be told, right? There is marketing to this fight, where I think this is why this fight was made. There's marketing either way. You would have had Rosonya, Stamp Fairtex trilogy, or you have ex-training partners going at it. So I do think this fight will be a good one. But yeah, Zamboanga just, for me, she dominated every little thing. She dominated the striking, she dominated the grappling. From the first round to halfway through the second round, she just looked the better fighter for all of it. So I don't blame Herb Dean jumping in. If I was Herb Dean, personally, I would have jumped in a little bit sooner. So I just don't know what Rosonya was doing, trying to defend herself. Okay, and on to fight 8. This was the fight, let's be honest, that everyone was waiting for. John Lineker versus Kulabdam. Two people known for their power, and did it live up to what we expected? So Lineker looked very good early on, even knocking down Kulabdam, who genuinely I thought he was quite surprised by the power of bloody John Lineker, man. I thought he was quite surprised in power that he has, being able to knock down Kulabdam. After being knocked down, though, he got up and he seemed almost fine within 20 seconds, went at it, and I would have scored round 1 9-9. If anything, I would have scored it 10-9 Kulabdam. I thought he did enough in the second half of that round to really win it. And I say second half, he probably did enough for the second 2 minutes of that round, right? 2/3 of that round, he dominated John Lineker. I thought John Lineker could only really throw hooks and uppercuts. I thought he got out-jabbed. When he got in close, Kulabdam was using his elbows and his knees a lot better, targeting his elbows onto his head, his knees up to the chest, up to the solar plexus to take away the oxygen from John Lineker. The whole time the commentators were on about John Lineker. He's used to fighting 5 rounds. He's done 5 rounds of 5 minutes. And yet, in round 3, he looked almost slow compared to Kulabdam. Kulabdam's fitness was a lot better than John Lineker's in the end. And I don't know if it's because John Lineker emptied his gas tank in round 1 to try to get the finish, but it seemed like he only had bursts of energy where he tried to get the finish. And I think that is his style. He has bursts of energy, tries to get the finish, he uses his muscle, tries to power through. And I think Kulabdam just did enough to keep him at bay and to win the fight in the end. Like, let's be honest, we all were there for that John Lineker versus Kulabdam fight. I mean, it was such a good fight on paper that it was above a title fight. It was above American contenders that sell out stadiums. So, but yeah, I just thought Kulabdam, fair enough to him. He handled John Lineker really well. He did something that a lot of people haven't been able to do, especially not in Muay Thai yet. So I did give the fight to John Lineker for my prediction. I thought you'd be able to get Kulabdam out in round 1, and I was so close to being correct. But even I have to sit there and say, Kulabdam won that fight quite convincingly. I know a single person who would have said John Lineker looked like himself in there. I thought Kulabdam just outperformed him. Close range in the clinch, far away with kicks. I thought John Lineker looked like a one-trick pony going for the hooks and the uppercuts, trying to go for a knockout. So, But yeah, I thought it was a very entertaining fight overall, and it was a good way to set up the main card, the main event. And on to the final fight. And yeah, the 100% streak of finishing opponents continues. Seriously, Akbar Abdullaev is serious news. He is dangerous to any featherweight on this planet. Not only did he finish Tankai in round 5 with the ground and pound, he dominated him for all 5 rounds, whether it was on the feet, outstriking him, even at times doing moves that almost looked showboaty. Right, he was showboating against an undefeated MMA world champion. Like, he is bad news to anybody he is across the cage to. Not only did his striking look good, using the pendulum step to back Tankai in and out and control the distance from range using his punches and kicks, he also dominated him in the grappling. He's one of the first people to take Tankai down. And he didn't do it once, he did it multiple times throughout that fight. He took Tankai down and held him there. Everything I've seen so far, every single news thing, because I want to see if it was just me who thought he dominated him, and it's not. You can look on any news article that covered that event. Akbar Abdullaev absolutely dominated Tankai that fight. There was not one thing that man could have done, right, to win that fight. Akbar Abdullaev, he genuinely, right, is everything and more that I thought he was, because he's done this before. He has finished people within one who are the best in the world. He has finished people on the regional scene and across Europe. But to beat an 18-0 MMA champion who's been champion for a couple years now, who had a time off and came back and won the belt again, how can you argue against him? This is my thing. I said in the video, in my prediction video, if you watched all the video, you would have heard me say, I think Abdullaev is a lot scarier than Taporia. And I think he is, as a featherweight. I think he is. Like, I think he is scarier than Taporia. I think Taporia and all this have a lot more. I think they have skill. They've got the skill advantage on him. But when it comes to the sheer ability to finish a motherfucker, I think Akbar Abdullaev just takes the cake every single time. So, yeah, he just really topped off a really good card. Tankai had his moments as well. Don't get me wrong. He had moments where he contested the champ, or the current champ now, right? Or the challenge. Well, it would have been challenger of the night. He had moments where he contested the challenger, but he didn't look the same level. And you don't understand how mad that is to do to a champion, to make a champ not look your level. Like, you saw it a lot in the UFC last year, where a champion was beaten and made to not look like a champion. Because if Akbar Abdullaev beat Tankai in round 1 by knockout, right, there would have been an argument that Tankai is better, right? If he is better, but Akbar Abdullaev just got the finish. There's an argument. Akbar Abdullaev dominated him for 5 rounds, for 4 full rounds, and I think it was late into the 5th when he finished him. So, yeah, he's just very deserving of that belt. He seriously is. And I don't see a lot of people in that division beating him for a long time. I don't think there's a lot of people in that division that beat him or even contest him. So, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was amazing. Great way to top off the evening.